President Buhari tasked Police Service Commission to redouble effort towards optimum service delivery.
Federal government inaugurates interagency committee for speedy debt recovery.
House resumes after 6 weeks recess, anxious to receive 2020 budget proposal.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss Nigeria's value system and what has gone wrong with it.
Now, you know, every community, institution or group exists on a system of values, beliefs, principles. But when that value system is abandoned or becomes virtually non-existent, the standard of right and wrong becomes uncertain and subject to change within a matter of time.
Well, Rhoda, that is when the inbred discipline and cultural value and the personal and social behavior of the people begin to lose their binding force. And then we have seen in Nigeria in recent decades the erosion of our core values as a people, culturally and socially. And of course, a number of agencies and prominent Nigerians are warning that we're coming dangerously close to overhauling or otherwise losing entirely our value system.
Well, the danger is it's actually coming from several areas. And let's take, for example, the nation's educational system. The standard is under threat from corruption on the part of some parents who help their children cheat in exams and even go as far as paying others to help them write the exams. Teachers are also complicit in this cheating, and the students have actually become very, very lazy.
Well, another sad point to note is that students in institutions of higher learning are sometimes compelled to offer gratification of one kind or the other to their lecturers in order for them to pass their crucial exams or to have their final projects approved. I believe that's what they refer to as sorting.
Indeed, you're right, absolutely right, Kingsley. Then it's referred to as sorting, but then I think now it's even gone beyond sorting. Well, it's not surprising that many young Nigerians have become involved in various get-quick-rich scams, most of which are all over the internet, and innocent people are falling victim to this. They are growing up with the mindset that it's okay to pursue wealth by hook or crook, as the honor and recognition are now directed to wealth and affluence instead of towards academic excellence.
Well, the society doesn't have that notion when people who have worked hard academically, for instance, and have emerged state or even national champions in various competitions. Take, for example, a mathematical quiz or others. And usually they are rewarded with what some persons will refer to as tokens, such as a laptop, versus a person who emerges the winner of a reality show and then earns 25 million naira and a brand new car after, some persons will say, fooling around for a few days in the house, no more than 90 days or 3 months. What kind of signaling is that to the younger ones with regard to the values that such a society cherishes?
Now, the most alarming aspect is the collapse of the nation's value system. The truth is that may be the lead to regard for the sanctity of human life manifested by rampant killings that we see and hear nowadays. Even in the universities where national leaders are supposed to be nurtured and bred.
Well, we have seen some measures, for instance, in the school curriculum with regard to the introduction of subjects that will help in the reorientation of the minds of the younger ones. Civics, for instance, is a subject that is now taught in the secondary schools, and in fact it's an offering in the senior secondary school certificate examinations. Well, of course, we also have the reintroduction of history, which is intended to teach young Nigerians where they are coming from and the sacrifices of statesmen and the values upon which the Nigerian nation was erected.
Now, take for example, you know, Kingsley, when we were growing up, we were brought up to know that, you know, there is value for life, respect for elders, our cultural values, and show love and kindness to one another. But the case is different nowadays. You know, when you have people who are in distress or who are involved in an accident, instead of rendering assistance to them, saying how they can, get them to the hospital, you see people, snapping, these victims with their phones just to post them on the internet. And, what happens is at the end of the day, oh, I got 20 likes, I got 100 likes for such.
Well, that's an issue that, of course, is fairly common these days on account of the rise of smartphones and social media.
Yeah.
As you said, some of the core values that any society would cherish include honesty, integrity, and respect for oneself, and indeed respect for others, more particularly respect for elders. Now, when, of course, Nigerians stop asking themselves how honest they are, whether at the place of work or whether in schools, or otherwise, then the question will arise as to what exactly is happening to our value system. And indeed, what are those things that we cherish today? What are those items on our social value scale that we venerate? Is it just money? How you acquire it, is it material or what? And you find, of course, the rat race all over the place. Everybody is striking it big, and then, of course, everybody is also in a crisis, considering precisely the kind of challenges that we are facing with regard to the social malaise that the country is having to grapple with. Of course, we shall be taking a look at all of this in our conversation segments on Good Morning Nigeria today. So, on that note, would like to welcome you to this edition of the program. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Rhoda Anona. I join Kingsley in welcoming you to today's edition of the program. We're broadcasting live from our studios here in Abuja on Africa's largest TV network, NTA. And of course, it's our tradition every morning on Good Morning Nigeria to bring you our complimentary segments of the program. And that includes the newspaper review. We have business, foreign, sports, and entertainment news. But as always, the news comes first. And Naja'atu is here with us this morning for the morning news. Naja'atu, good morning. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Rhoda and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news with me, Naja'atu Tijani. The management of the Police Service Commission has been tasked to redouble efforts towards repositioning the Nigeria Police Force for optimum service delivery. The President threw the challenge while receiving the 2018 annual report of the Police Service Commission, saying that the police must be ready and capable of protecting lives and property, as well as ensuring peace and order within the dictates of the law at all times.
I want to assure you that the government will do its best to make sure you have the necessary support, both in funding and good environment, to carry out your constitutional responsibilities.
Meanwhile, the federal government has taken another determined step in its bid to recover over 5 trillion naira outstanding debt owed the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, with the formal inauguration of an interagency committee to speedily resolve the challenges in recovering the debts. President Muhammadu Buhari has dissolved the Special Presidential Investigation Panel for the Recovery of Public Property, SPIP, as currently constituted, with Mr. Okoye Obono Obla as chairman. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, says the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice has been directed to immediately take over all outstanding investigations and other activities of the SPIP. The panel was established in August 2017 by the then acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, to investigate specifically mandated cases of corruption, abuse of office, and similar offenses by public officers. The statement adds that President Buhari thanks all members of the dissolved panel for their services as he looks forward to receiving the final Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission report on the ongoing investigations of the dissolved panel's chairman. And to further promote cashless economy and enhance the collection of applicable government revenue, the Central Bank of Nigeria has announced a review of the process for merchant settlement with effect from September September 17, 2019, the CBN has approved for banks to unbundle merchant settlement amounts and charge applicable taxes and duties on individual transactions as stipulated by regulations. A statement signed by the Director, Payment System Management Department at the bank, Sam Okujere, also announced a downward review of the merchant service charge from 0.75% capped at 1,200 naira to 0.5% capped at 1,000 naira. The House of Representatives is looking forward to receiving from President Muhammadu Buhari the budgetary proposal for 2020 towards achieving the January to December budget cycle. Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila gave the indication on the first day of plenary after the resumption of House members from the 2019 annual recess.
Today we recited the National Pledge, now part of our recitals at the beginning of every sitting. This will help inculcate the spirit of nation building, even in our subconscious.
And on the security front, economic diversification to other untapped abundant natural resources capable of generating employment to Africa's fast-growing population is a panacea to emerging security threats in most African countries. This was part of the summation at the inauguration of Course 28 of the National Defense College, Abuja.
We have assets within this nation beyond oil and what it represents. How do we maximize all of those assets for our economic development in a way that we're able to keep our nation safe?
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Rhoda after the break.
This is to notify candidates who applied for Ahmadu Bello University and NTA TV College degree program in mass communication for 2019-2020 academic session that the post-UTME screening exercise has been scheduled to take place on Saturday, 21st September 2019. Venue, NTA TV College premises, Rayfield, Jos. Time, 9 a.m. Screening fee, 2,000 naira paid through the remitter platform in favor of NTA TV College Jos. Candidates who chose the college as second and third choices in the 2019 UTME examination scored 180 and above and willing to study at the college can also come for the exercise. Candidates who satisfy the above requirements are expected to come along with the originals of their O-level certificate, any of WAEC, NECO, or NABTEL, JAMB slip, birth certificate, indigenship certificate, and proof of payment. Direct entry candidates are expected to come along with their original diploma certificate, A-level results, in addition to other credentials mentioned above. Registrar, Announcer.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Please. Did you hear that?
Of course I did. That is village master tune.
So Auntie Amebo was not gossiping then?
Village master is celebrating 50 years.
50? Already? This is not a joke.
It is a national celebration. NTA and village master family are commemorating 50 years.
Hey, please tell me, when is our golden jubilee?
It is from the 8th to 11th of October 2019.
I have to go and get ready. It's time to party.
Women, but we men will be there too.
Please.
Imagine a luxury big breakfast on top of the world in Dubai.
To Dubai. Hope you bought enough big milk. Dubai, here we come.
To be one of the 20 lucky people going to enjoy a peak breakfast in Dubai, buy Peak Milk and collect your scratch card to redeem your instant win. Fill your details and return. Everyone's a winner. So keep on buying your Peak Milk and keep winning. Valid while stocks last. Reach for your peak.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, time for us to take some business stories, with the federal government pledging to work much more closely through relevant agencies and institutions to bring about a more result-oriented tax system as a step towards addressing revenue concerns. Let's join our business desk for details of that story and others. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, says the increase of value-added tax to 7.5% is intended to generate more revenue for government. She said the increase does not affect the common man adversely, clarifying that the several items like food, water and medicine are exempted from the VAT increase.
There's so many exemptions in the VAT Act that does not affect the common man. But of course, if you decide to go to a high-end restaurant to eat, you pay VAT. But if you go to the market, buy your foodstuff and cook at home, you're not paying any VAT. So it will not directly affect the common man.
In another development, Central Bank of Nigeria has disclosed that total direct remittances to Nigeria in the first 7 months of the year rose to $11.54 billion as against $4.9 billion reported in the corresponding period of 2018. Data collected from the Apex Bank's official website revealed that diaspora remittances into the nation's economy continued to soar amidst a series of foreign exchange reform that tend to attract inflow of capital. And the Consumer Price Index CPI, which measures inflation, maintained a downward trajectory to 11.02% year-on-year in August compared to 11.08% in July. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the disinflation continued despite several policy pronouncements on restriction on the import of some food items, minimum wage, as well as a recent border closure. The National Bureau of Statistics in the Consumer Price Index report for August released Tuesday further explained that the border was only closed 20th August with only 11 days of 31 days for any significant impact to be felt either way on the prices. With business news, I'm Chimubi Walter Naji.
Thank you very much, Chimobi Walter, there for the business news. Now, time for us to take a look at what stories made the dailies.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Turbe, is right here with us on the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Bayo.
brother.
Good
morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, let's begin by taking a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper, above the nameplate, we have the following headlines. Inflation dropped in August despite border closure. As attributed to the National Bureau of Statistics. Details on page 25. Negotiation with Sokoto bandits ongoing, says Tambuwa, is the governor of Sokoto State. Submit yourself to trial, EFCC tells ex-Attorney General of the Federation, Adoke. And CBN begins charges on deposits and withdrawals above 500,000 naira. That's page 27.
Okay.
And 2 earpieces beside the nameplate, stolen 400 million naira. Ex-GOC faces court-martial in a wheelchair. That's on page 10. And federal government inaugurates panel to recover 5 trillion naira AMCON debts. That's on page 13. Indeed, that story I read a while ago on the former GOC who is facing a court-martial over the looted 400 million naira is a lead story for the Nigerian pilot. And it says, well, of course, it comes with an exclamation mark, stealing. 8-man court-martial tries Army General. First reporting 600 million. What was reported earlier was 400 million. Court to be presided over by Lieutenant General Adeosun. Proceedings guided by Constitution, Armed Forces, Evidence Act, Holy Bible, and Quran. That's on page 8. Now, other headlines on the front page of the Punch newspaper, back to the Punch, is a lead story. 817 Nigerians waiting for evacuation from South Africa. And that's according to the federal government. And government plans to bring back 25 detained Nigerians. Details can be found on page 9. Benue will conduct local government poll in November. And U.S. cuts funding. 223,000 in Boko Haram enclave risk hunger. Bauchi yellow fever death toll hits 23. And woman stabs lover to death over daughter's birthday. It's pages 4 and 5.
All right, let's quickly move over now to the blueprint. On the blueprint, just below the nameplate, it says Kogi 2019. We're worried about possible violence, says INEC. Kogi 2019. We're worried about possible violence, and that statement they're credited to INEC. Below that is a story that's trending on the Punch and other papers. 400 million naira theft. GOC faces court martial. That's on page 29. Of the blueprint. Just beside that, you'd see inflation drops to 11.05%. Inflation drops to 11.05%. That's a story you can read up on page 34. And the lead story this morning, that's the big one on the blueprint, is minimum wage palaver, strike only way out. Minimum wage palaver, strike only way out, says Labour. Now let's go below the picture story. Let's go down to the foot of the paper. You said Kwara governor lists 26-year-old court member for commissioner. That's on page 9. Federal government set up task force to recover 5 trillion naira AMCA debt, and GMOs important for food security, says federal government. Put police in order, Buhari directs Police Service Commission. And of course, another story that's also trending, corruption. Buhari sacks Oblas per panel, awaits ICPC's report. That's on page 5 on the blueprint. And those are the stories trending on the blueprint this morning. Let's begin.
Yes, let's start with the xenophobia and at least bring an update. The expected evacuation of about 320 Nigerians, which were expected yesterday, did not take place. This was because the Air Peace aircraft waited for landing permission and it was not forthcoming. Eventually, it secured one through the Emirate, but the South African authorities gave a specific time for which the aircraft is to arrive. Meanwhile, the consulate says that the number of persons who have registered to return have risen to 1,004, and therefore it has increased from the 640 originally. It may be recalled that 187 were the first that arrived. Presently, it says about 817 are waiting to be evacuated. About 5 coaches have been garnered by the consulate to transport the evacuees to the Oliver Tambo airport. Meanwhile, the consulate say it is also working with the South African immigration so that there will be no delay, and 25 other Nigerians for whom they have been in contact who are in detention, they are also trying to secure their release so that they can eventually come back home. However, it may be recalled that the House of Representatives, upon resumption yesterday at plenary, also praised the effort of Air Peace and recommended the chairman, chief executive, to be given a national award for his patriotism. Speaker, however, used the occasion to frown at the alleged refusal of the Minister for Foreign Affairs to honor invitation by the House Committee. Now, talking about the crime and criminalities that have been reported in the paper, first is the Nigerian Army court-martial of the former GOC of the 8th Division. It is over alleged stealing of 400 million by 5 soldiers. You will recall that in July, I think it was, 5 soldiers were detailed to escort 400 million by to a VIP in Jaji. In the process, the money disappeared. One of them was then reported to have been arrested, and it is at the convening of the court-martial ordered by the Chief of Army Staff that commenced yesterday. However, the defending former GOC has urged the president of the court-martial to recuse himself because he described him as an interested party. The other one, it comes from Port Harcourt. Rivers State Police Command have arrested 2 persons in connection with recent killing of 2 women in hotels. In the past 2 months, about 8 women have been killed in several hotels, and this is suspected to be ritualists. The Commissioner of Police in Port Harcourt, his name is Mustafa Dandaura, has entered agreement with all hoteliers that they must install closed-circuit television in all their hotels. And other measures that has been recommended is also that there must be full check-in and check-out procedures, guest telephone number must be acquired, ID cards must be inspected, and the full registration of guests that is usually submitted to the Police Investigation Bureau every weekend must be made. This is on the grounds that it has been found that the few women that have been killed usually have been found to have a white cloth tied around their neck and their waist, and it's highly suspicious that it is ritualist, and the police is serious on anybody who breach this is control. But meanwhile, the controversy between the Police Service Commission and the Police High Command has been resolved. President Muhammad Buhari, while receiving the submission of Commission's report yesterday, pointed out that it is the duty of the Police Service Commission to recruit officers of the Nigerian police force, except that of Inspector General of the Police. That is what is provided for in the Constitution. Actually, the conflict came from the Police Service Act of 1945 that empowered the Police High Command to recruit constables, and this was done by the commandant at the various police colleges. During the evolution, there was the Police Council, which had the powers to employ, but with the introduction of the Police Service Commission, that power had been ceded to the Police Service Commission. So we hope that this will be an end to the bureaucracy and the conflict, because already you now have a Minister of Police Affairs, and the Police Service Commission, as it is now, reports directly to the President. The Minister also reports directly through the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to the President.
Well, I'm particularly happy about the measures that are being taken in Port Harcourt regarding the number of killings that we have seen of young ladies at the hotel. That, what kept coming to my mind was, why is it that these hotels, can't or couldn't install CCTV cameras? Just restaurants, just very small organizations. You go in, even some homes, they install these cameras to see, how their children are doing when they're out of the house, parents. So it's quite happy to note that, a lot is being done, just as you said. But let's quickly take a look at our...
Yeah, well, before but still on the killings in Port Harcourt.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes you just might have a serial killer who is on the loose.
That's what I told.
Yes. And where we refer to them as hotels, but hotels have grades. So are these just motels, or just an inn, or so-called guest house, where a patron just strolls in and with all kinds of fake IDs, then you get a room for either some hours or or a day. And some of the operators are more interested in what you would pay, rather than properly identifying you or getting your ID and ascertaining that indeed you are who you claim to be. But if you have a CCTV, as Rhoda was saying, and as indeed the authorities have also now indicated, it would help tremendously. I mean, you can see the face of the individual who went into a particular room or who came in there, and how careful were they? I mean, if two persons checked into a hotel and you saw one leaving and the other didn't come out, what measures did the manager or the receptionist take at that material time?
I think the police have taken all those into consideration. In fact, one of the two arrested was arrested as far away as at Kaduna. And why they are insisting on the CCTV is to make sure that it will help their investigation. And not only that, why they have concluded that it's ritual killing is that in all the instances, there is a pattern of tying a white cloth around the waist and the neck of the victims. So that is why they are suspicious. And they have specifically said there's no more short time. Short time you pay for an hour or two to use the home. They have ruled out there will be nothing like that. So they must accommodate guests who are staying 1 day or more.
Well, this should also be, we should transmit this also to other states.
That's right. Yeah, well, one other headline here, this has been in the news, from the Nigerian pilot below the nameplate. After Obono Oblast sack, Buhari dissolves presidential panel for recovery of public property. It's been a controversial panel right from the very beginning 2 years ago. Details can be found on page 5.
All right, very quickly, let's take our editorial. Our editorial this morning is on the New Telegraph. And it's on the NFF and the Super Eagles of tomorrow. NFF and the Super Eagles of tomorrow. Let me take just a paragraph here. It says, it's a shame that the match bonus of the Super Eagles for their third place match at the Africa Nations Cup, which ended in July in Egypt, is yet to be paid, while the under-23 technical crew members are being owed 6 months, just as Super Eagles coach Gernot Rohr is being owed 2 months. I think that's on page 13 of the New Telegraph. It's on page 13 of the New Telegraph. And it says, just I take another paragraph. It said, these we say are distractions that could affect the progress of football generally in the country. But let's look at that. Okay. July, August, September, this September, right? Almost in October. Third place match that was being played in Egypt. They're still owed, technical crew being owed, the coach being owed 2 months' salary. How would that affect the team going forward?
Well, that is what the editorial is happening on. They say that there are several off-pitch events that eventually and invariably often affect the outcome of play. And it has cited like the one you read now, under 23, on our football team that played in the Cup of Nations. Yeah. Since July, came third. Up till now, they say their match bonuses for coming third has not been paid. And not only that, they also cite the instances of under 23. The technical crew are owed salaries up to 6 months. The chief coach itself, Gernot Rohr, is owed about 2 months. And the editorial is saying these are the distractions that invariably affects the performance of the players. So when next you invite players to come to camp, because they are owed bonuses, they tend to always drag their feet. Not only that, you may recall that there are even some of the winnings that has taken place since the time that President Muhammadu Buhari was in power between 1984. And that had not been redeemed up till now. So it's been a problem of having this thing going on. And the editorial is happening that if we are to reap future successes, particularly that they now have an atmosphere of very young players who are coming in the team. And the editorial described them as successes of the potentials that we are having for the future. But these off-pitch instances can be a serious discouragement for them.
I know, Bayo, that there are other issues in terms of getting players to come to camp, but that's part of the reasons why you have, some of our boys who are playing international, leagues, and when you ask them to come play for Nigeria, they tell you because of some of these issues in terms of payment.
Yes, but you see, there are two sides of the coin. If you invited a Brazilian player to play for his nation, he will leave whatever he's doing and grab that as a first-time opportunity. That is not to say that they don't pay them their due entitlement. But however, sometimes we find some of our players holding the nation to ransom. And that something I think that is not patriotic enough. But be that as it may, we have also had players who pay their passage to come and don't even take their bonus. Late Samuel Okwaraji was one of them. He will pay his passage and come and even forfeit the entitlement.
During the World Cup
all right.
During the World Cup, paying
the allowances and all this and that.
His colleagues.
But it should not reach that, because the president himself, for instance, the last Nation Cup, the president said he had approved for a release of funds. So what happened to the funds?
Let them, at some point, if that is not taking place already, ICPC and EFCC should find out why those monies have not been paid. And going forward, it may become necessary to attach ICPC and EFCC officials to not to NFF, to any team that is going for a competition. So that if you are supposed to pay your allowance today, Wednesday, you must pay that allowance before noon, pay it before noon. Otherwise, ICPC, EFCC will make a report back. Like you played the match in July, and people are talking about allowances not being paid.
Yes, in September.
So,
if you recall, too, the outgoing minister said specifically that he was to put a measure in place to ensure that when a tournament is to come, they will get the accounts of the players and they will pay directly to their accounts.
How long does it take to open an account? How long does it take?
Is there any player who will not have an account? All you need to just take the account and then make sure that
it's part of the details they give when they're filling their forms or contracts.
And EFCC, let them be on this matter. Why have the players not received their bonus since July? That's 2 months now, almost going to 3 months. Who has custody of the money? Why did you not pay the money when you were supposed to have paid the money? That is the kind of language that I'm sure these guys will understand. All right. Thanks a lot for being around.
Thank you,
See
too.
you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll be discussing the value system and what's gone wrong with it.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol sure. Daddy is home. He must be germ-free. He needs to be Dettol sure. My clothes are so nice. We are Dettol sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol. Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol sure.
It is here again. The NTA ETV Annual Expo is here again. This time, it is the 13th edition. 2019 has as its theme, promoting unity and innovations in youths as agents of change through science and arts. It promises to be captivating as youths across the nation showcase their unique skills and innovations in science and arts, make new friends, and showcase their rich cultural heritage. Join us at the NTA Headquarters Arena Area 11, Garki, Abuja from Sunday 28th October to Thursday 24th October 2019. For more information, participation, and sponsorship, please call these numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
You're welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of Nigerian Television Authority. By the way, we are live this morning, and we're looking at Nigeria's value system. What went wrong? We have our guests seated here in the studio already in Abuja and Kaduna to speak deeply on this issue. But first, our correspondent went out on the streets to feel the pulse of Nigerians on the issue.
Our parents are not doing their job with respect to the children, and that is why it's deteriorating. We need to go down to the drawing board and be able to reactivate that which our forefathers laid down for us.
The only challenge with our value system is we are copying the West too much. We are Africans, and if we want to retain it, we need to visit what we have as a heritage and sustain it. We have respect for elders. You don't find young people call their elders by name in Africa. In the West, they do. In the West, you hear things like hi, hello. In Africa, it doesn't happen that way. We have high regard for our elders.
It starts from the family. You understand? The charity begins at home. The parents should teach their children.
In as much as it's actually good for us to actually copy the West, like I think we should just focus on copying the positive aspects, because there are some of our values that are actually very, very they are worth emulating. But we tend to abandon it and just stick to the West, in which even though some of those Western values are actually not actually in conformity with our own system here.
We're exposed to other traditions now. Globalization is happening, so we're copying the West too much.
All right, thank you very much there for the Vox Pop. Seated with us on the studios here in Abuja, I would like to welcome Dr. Garba Abari, who is Director General of the National Orientation Agency. Dr. Abari?
Good morning, Kingsley.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning.
Also here with us at the studios, would like to welcome Gloria Okolugbo. She was with us recently. She is Center Coordinator, Restore Initiatives, and also a former Commissioner for Multilateral Relations in Delta State. Pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much for always inviting me.
All right, and also we have seated here in the studio Chris Agiri. He's he's of the Flag Foundation. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Nigeria. Good to be
Joining
here.
us on this conversation from our Kaduna studio, let's welcome Professor Khalifa Dikwa. He's another public affairs analyst joining us on the program this morning. Prof, good morning. It's good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Nigeria.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the issue is Nigeria's value system. What has gone wrong? Perhaps, for purposes of setting the tone beyond what we heard in the Vox Pop, when we say a value system, what exactly are we referring to, Dr. Barry?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I think we are referring to exactly the norms, the cultures, our entire general ways of doing things that differentiates the good from the bad. I think in a layman's language, ordinarily when we refer to values, these are the things, the practices, the acts, the behaviors that define us as a people, and they define us as define the way in which we do our things. And of course, values could be cultural, they could be social, they could be political, but they defined the sum total of actually what governs our lives and the way we relate to one another, the way we take responsibilities, the way we relate to each other, the way we run our affairs as global citizens, as nationals, and of course as community and as individuals.
Chris?
Well, when you talk about values, value systems, you are talking about totality of those norms, virtues, values, ethical standards, and behaviors that is designed to guide and regulate human conduct. And that is why you have government and social institutions. A society where these basic norms and values is lacking, such a society is doomed. Then you have yes, of course, all of them forms under the moral values. There is the religious values, there is the cultural values, there is the family values, and then most importantly, because whoever you are, you must belong to a society, a geographical entity, in this regard, Nigeria. Then national values. It is these national values that prepares you for what it takes, for your duties and responsibilities for citizenship. A society, a country, a nation, where these things are lacking, such a society is not expected to have a sustainable development.
Gloria Okolugbo, let's get your thoughts on this.
Well, like it connotes, it's the values, are the things that we hold dear as a people. They're sometimes learned, values could be learned, imbued, handed over from generation to generation, and they're the things that underlie our existence. The very essence of a people is determined by their values, the values they hold.
All right, let's go to Prof. who's in Kaduna now. Prof, before we begin to delve into the issue, let's get your take also.
Yes, Rhoda, it is just about 3 baskets One full of the norms, values, the do's and don'ts. The next one is the repercussions if the values are not adhered to. Then the third one, the consequences, i.e. the punishment, the societal, the social, and whatever it is that will come. And that is there. Some of the values are universal. Universal in the sense that decency, is, for instance, is universal. Not to steal, not to cheat, not to be arrogant, not to be calling elders with their first names and so on, as the case in whatever we copy from the West, particularly America, under the First Amendment of freedom that is unlimited, which is now a problem to them. They have already started paying for allowing it to open. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. There's an issue that you've always hear, and that's that values as a people have different aspects to them. You have religious, you have political, you have social, you have moral, you have cultural values. But then let's begin with the DG of NOA. As a people, as a nation, let's look at the values that we hold.
Well, I think if you look at chapter 2, I think Article 23 of the Constitution, has identified the 1999 Constitution as amended, has identified what our national core values are. And these are patriotism, meaning our love for nation, integrity, integrity in service, integrity outside service, the principle of social justice, religious tolerance, hard work, honesty. These are defined as our national core values. Now, if they are Nigeria's core values, they are actually universal in the sense that no country can aspire to develop, to be peaceful, to develop on a sustainable basis without these core values. These are our own, but you extrapolate, you find that they are, by extension, global values. In addition to what has been identified and defined in the Constitution as Nigeria's national core values, we also have other values that are indigenous, inherent, endemic in us as Africans and as Nigerians. These are culturally endemic. We see them as our social regulators. We see them as our social regulators of how we conduct ourselves at the level of the family, in relation to one another, in our respective workplaces, and so on and so forth. So whatever you whether you view it from the African cultural Nigerian perspective, or you take it from the global perspective of what I have defined as Nigerian stroke global core values, these actually are our national core values, which unfortunately informs maybe the reason why we are here today, to discuss how our values have sunk, how we have lost quite a number of them, and how we are actually now reaping, with pain, the consequences, of the loss of these values, or how they have waned and are therefore impacting on our conduct, whether as individuals, as groups, or as institutions.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Abari. Let's bring in Gloria Kolobo now. Well, we can tick off you know, what we refer to as our core values, either as a nation or as a society or as a people in general. Honesty is there, integrity is there, respect for oneself and for others, and dignity of labor, and the value that premium will place also on hard work, being, you know, the way to proceed in any environment. What do we find today?
Thank you so much. We find a nosedive in our society, and it's something that we need to begin to be on a fast motion to reverse. I've been involved in behavioral change advocacy for very long, and that is about changing behaviors. But like you said, you reeled out a whole lot of things that are supposed to have been imbued from the foundation. When you describe a Nigerian mother, I'm here first as a Nigerian mother, and I was raised by a Nigerian mother. I remember when I was in my mother's class, it was my worst year in school, because she would sit over you and make sure you did over and above and better than every other person in the class. You had to study doubly hard. Not only did she do that for me, she did that for all her 6 children and all the 5 or 6 children that her sisters had in her school. And so when I begin to hear of things like a parent cheating for the child, it's pathetic. Because with the way we grew up, the culture we had as Nigerians, if your mother was a teacher, you automatically became a teacher. Because you had to be a step above, ahead of everybody in class. You had to read ahead, you had to know better, and it came to play in our lives in the future. It was tough while we were growing up, but we valued her much more even after she had passed on. Because you know what? We turned out right. That's what our values do for us. We exchange westernization, modernization for nothing. Because we drop the values that we grew up with, and we have picked up nothing but sham. A pregnant woman used to be a mystery. But you open the social media now, you see ladies standing behind. I have 3 sons. Standing, the man is behind you, and you open your tummy. Nigerians might not like me today, but I think we have a lot to do to change our values. Because what we are practicing today, we're going to pass on to the next generations that come. And you open up your tummy, the blessed gift that the Lord God has given to you, and you open it up. Is that a new culture?
It's for social media, you know.
And you know, if you want to have as many hits in a society where you are now described by the number of followers you have, oh, don't mind her, she has only 4 followers on social media. So your status is now about the number of followers you have on social media. And so if you want more followers, you need to open up your cleavage a little bit more, and we need to raise our children. We need to raise our children. We need to raise the children of the neighbor next door. That is what we were known for as Nigerians. We can't drop that for sham. We hold on to the values that are a plus, and then we drop the things that are obnoxious in our culture.
All right, Chris, speak to us on patriotism. Where have we?
Yeah, well, like the DG said, chapter 2, section 23 of the 1999 Constitution as amended talks about the national ethics. That's the subheading there, national ethics, among which is self-reliance, dignity of labor, patriotism. The core, patriotism is the umbrella that guides all this discussion. What is patriotism? Love for the country. But there's something. Patriotism don't just fall. Patriotism is taught. And in societies like the United States, early enough, they design programs they call the theory of deliberate indoctrination. Those patriotic instincts, dispositions are deliberately articulated, crafted, and deliberately impacted on the citizens, beginning from the kindergarten. I was reading something. So the American aristocrat families Once a child has gotten to a point of clipping his or her fist, the first thing that is given to that child is the American flag. The first color separation, this separation that gets into the subconscious of the average American child is the color, is their national flag. And it is from there they begin to indoctrinate them. Like things we'll do in the Flag Foundation, using the national flag, what it stands for and what it represents, to now from their programs in the primary, secondary schools, for them to understand their duties, their responsibilities as citizens, as well as their rights and their privileges, the obligations to the nation. And I'll give you an example. In our own system here, I doubt very much if there is a well-articulated fashion program that is designed to impact, to indoctrinate the young Nigerians on what patriotism means, on what patriotism entails. During the Civil War, the Nigerian War of Unity, as a 7-year-old, I didn't know what was going on. But what I remember is this. From the school, on the road, they'll be telling us, if somebody asks you, who are you? Don't say you are a Biafran from the land of rising sun. You can imagine as far as that it got sunk into me. If you look at the Jews, from kindergarten, they begin to sing it into the ears of their children. Even the Americans, from the kindergarten, they begin to sing it into the ears of the children. When the Americans said, I'm an American, it's not necessarily because of what the country does. It's because there has been a deliberate, well-articulated program designed to indoctrinate that child. And he grows up to become that great patriot. They made them understand that, look, the greatest service, the greatest calling is the call to serve your nation. And that is why the average American will lay down his or her life in defense of American interests, the American flag. That is the things that are lacking.
Yeah, well, Chris, thank you very much. I'm sure that, Professor Khalifa Dikwa respond to aspects of that, because when he first made his initial comment, he did talk about the hazards, for instance, that America is facing today on account of the First Amendment, which has to do with the freedom of expression and freedom of the media. And some other persons will also go so far as to talk about the amendment that also allows the possession of weapons in the U.S. and the hazards that the U.S. is facing. But let's come back. Patriotism is part of our national ethics, as you rightly identified, drawing from Section 23 of the Constitution. But the other values that are indeed the erosion of which is creating a great deal of concern for us today: discipline, integrity, honesty, dignity of labor. Professor Dikwa, tell us, in your opinion, what has gone wrong? I mean, people venerate wealth without hard work?
Yes, Kingsley Osadolo. The thing is, we got it wrong right from the beginning, particularly what we call it democracy, where we borrowed it and somehow they twisted or compromised some of us to have a constitution that alienated our traditional values. And therefore, we had it just from outside, and therefore, freedom was open-ended. Like you said, freedom to say anything, freedom to even ask the parents what they did in the bedroom, why did they give birth to you, and all this kind of freedom is there. Again, when we were growing as children, we were taught to respect the woman, to see the woman through our mothers, and that we were also told to say any elder, the father of anybody there is like our father, and therefore if we did not respect the fathers of others, we are not likely to grow tall and be knowledgeable in future. These are things that were imbibed in us, and eventually, in the name of freedom of doing anything in a country that is that had to do everything by trial and error in America because it is a country of refugees. Unlike Britain, where they have the Queen, you have in Japan, you have the monarchs everywhere. And therefore, we had it wrong through the politics of just accepting anything from outside. And you see the kind of gymnastics in the National Assembly that everything must be now tabled twice to be a law before anything good, as if Nigeria had no laws in the past, and therefore copying things without looking at the repercussions is a problem, because we had our values that even the white men came and took most of them, and they were using them. And therefore, the love of anything outside more than your own is a problem, because again, generosity, for instance, is a value in our system, where any special food cooked in our own houses, no matter how small the dishes were, we were asked to go and share. Even if we had pancakes, for instance, we were asked to go and share with the children of the neighbors. Eventually, we are the last to have. Therefore, we grew up with the generosity. We respected one another, no fight among them. And today, imagine just whatever it is that is good, it is between the father, the mother, the child. That is the nuclear family, as against our traditional, beautiful extended families, where the uncle of Mr. X is also my uncle. And therefore, even a son with a different mother is called half-brother. This is irony of it. And therefore, this is high time for us now to look back, now that they themselves are confused, because America was picking just empirical method of picking trying and error up to all these years. Nigeria as a country, or Africa, we don't have to go that way and call our democracy still nascent. It is not nascent because we have the opportunity of picking the best parts of all the democracies in America, India, Britain, and so on, all the best practice, and add them onto our value system to have a perfect thing, and in a situation in which we can also punish or derobe a senior advocate of his that thing when he defends a criminal or a looter, for instance, with NJC sitting up and say, fine, if you have not helped the court to catch this person, and therefore we are going to get rid of your robe of senior advocate because you are for money, and so on. This is the kind of thing that we should now look back. It never happened in the past, where you see semantic gymnastics in the courts of law about technicalities and so on, bringing in things that are 2 + 2 = 4, and they always say 5 or 3 or something of that nature. And therefore, the ideal thing was that if you are caught with all those things in your possession, even say your own earning is less than that, and you have a bulky account and so on, and then it is, instead of copying what is outside and say this is you are innocent until proven guilty. And therefore, the ideal thing is that this is something that is not yours. From 3 questions asked, thrown at the person, these things, this money doesn't look like your own. Come and defend yourself, and it will give you the honors of declaring yourself innocent. Otherwise, the punishment will not only to seize it, also flog you. Flogging reminds me of the time we had a school sergeant where we were disciplined and so on. They managed to cheat us and to remove, in the name of child rights and so on, they just got rid of the school sergeant. Even the no inspections, the teachers were looked down upon, and so on, and eventually paper qualification is made higher than the real thing that intellectuals like you in the media, Kingsley, these are values that we cherished, not just a title and so on in the past. And therefore, we just allow, it is not late to go back to our value system by just revisiting the laws. And the laws do not have to be rewritten again. After all, Britain doesn't have a written constitution, and anything good doesn't have to be made laws, a new law, and so on. Anything bad, the universal law is that whoever kills somebody should expect the laws to take him to even accompany his own, to join his own victim. If
Professor Dikwa, thank you very much for your comments there. We'll return to you later in the course of this conversation. Dr. Garba Barry, I mean, let's bring this down further still. I mean, assuming we are 30,000 feet, let's bring it down to just say, 30 feet so that everybody can see it. I mean, we talk about our national ethic or core value being disciplined. I mean, we saw that Gloria was talking about growing up. We are growing up too. I'm sure you also, you definitely experienced what discipline was all about. When you look around, obeying simple rules is a challenge. Obeying simple rules, whether organizational or external, it's a major challenge for us. And I mean, it's what you also see is people are just chasing after money everywhere. Money. Is money a value?
Yes, money.
I'm just asking this question. I mean, it's a rhetorical question.
Right.
Money without worth behind it, without value behind it. What are the eroders that have impacted our value system, such that some persons will say that we are virtually upside down?
Well, I think we have to look at the environment in its totality, the social and the political environment under which we all operate. Then we also look at the recent development which is now impacting on our social lives, what I call the internet culture. But the environment that I am referring to is the environment that is being eaten into as a result of very poor, non-responsive, if you allow me, irresponsive leadership. And this is something which is reflected at the level of organizations and even at the level of the family, unfortunately, where you find a number of parents not able to parent. My sister just made reference to her experiences when she was growing up. This is the same experience that we all passed through. But the situation has gotten so bad to the point where parents now go to the very low level of hiring surrogate examiners for their children. It couldn't be worse than this. Now, a society that does not recognize merit, a society that cannot impose its rules, a society that cannot enforce its rules, then definitely such a society is on the road to perfidy. And this is actually what we have found ourselves. In the days of old, the school teacher, the catechists in the village elders, they were actually these are facilitators and the promoters and the protectors of the values and ethics. And everybody tended to look at them with reverence, and we all try to copy because they were seen as icons. Today, institutions have been dropped of their functions simply because they have not been allowed to develop the requisite capacity because they have been undermined by an environment or operating in an environment which cherishes only wealth, which cherishes dishonesty, which cherishes the culture that allows the child to grow believing that it pays to cut corners. That it pays to cut corners. All these Yahoo things that you hear about, all these massive examination malpractices you find at all levels of our school system, all these social biases that you find around on the street, our inability as citizens to simply operate, to obey rules that you made reference to, as simple as obeying traffic rules, you know, speak, all put together speak volumes on how low we have really sunk. But then, at what point can we say we missed the bus? I think we missed the bus at the time when leadership became appropriated by only power contest. At the level of communities, leadership tended to evolve naturally. You see a society where the leader is being groomed or being groomed or being seen to emerge from the very level, you know, of the family or at the school system until such a time when he actually begins to show all the indices and all the indices and the science of leadership. But today, this is just not what we see.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Barry. We will, of course, return to you. Let's bring in now Gloria Okolobo again. I mean, we're talking about all of these manifestations of the erosion of our national values. For instance, sheer lack of discipline, whether on the roads or at the place of work or otherwise. People were supposed to get be at their desk at a certain given time are hardly ever there. If you're supposed to put in 8 hours of work a day, how many hours do they actually put in? And yet, at the end of the month, there will be the loudest voices shouting that, oh, their salaries have not been paid, and so on and so forth. And the shared madness, you know, a chasing after wealth, such as you find the escalation in the so-called Yahoo, widespread corruption in society, the so-called pen robbers, and, you know, ritual murderers, and so on and so forth. Just how have all of these emerged?
Yes, you put it rightly. How have all of this emerged? Sheer lack of discipline. Sheer lack of discipline, the issue of integrity, dignity at work. All doesn't matter anymore. Why? Let's look at the society we have. We have a deeply polarized society. We have a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. I have lived in two worlds and I have two realities. As a non-profit worker and a development worker, I worked with the poor, I worked with people. And for every little intervention you give to them, they had a deep sense of appreciation for everything I did. But once I transited into government, which I saw as a better platform for me to have a wider reach and the ability to reach people more, I found that in the process of trying to grow people and empower them, it was zero appreciation. You know why? It is our money. You have eaten our money, bring it out, irrespective of who you are. And you know why? There's a huge difference between the wage bill for the average worker and the political class and the political elite. We have an issue with our democracy and the issue of remuneration and the deep levels of poverty which the society has sunk into. While we take cognizance of that, that doesn't justify. It in no way justifies the foundation, because you find that what you have as your foundation is what determines what you do when you get to leadership position. It doesn't corrupt. Your environment doesn't corrupt you if actually you have a good foundation. And that still brings us back to the upbringing. What happens at the micro level, which is the home, has a drastic effect on what happens at the macro level, which is the society. And so maybe National Orientation Agency, you begin to churn out programs for us where all those concepts of bomo, if you dropped 1,000 naira here now and you turned your back, it will vanish.
Not in our studios.
on the average streets in Nigeria.
Perhaps, yeah.
But we were raised to believe that there was some kind of spirit and gbomo that will catch you if you picked money. And it was unthinkable for you to pick up money from the ground.
I absolutely agree with you. As you speak to this, I say this because growing up, you brought something home that your parents didn't get for you. And your mother would ask you, where did you get that? Or you wore something that wasn't bought for you. We see an instance where parents even buy laptops for their children. Is there a kind of expectation, so much expectation from parents from their children that is, actually, because the kidnapping that we see, the online scam that we see, a lot of times, a lot of these kids is a result of the fact that I probably want to make my father or my mother proud, or I want people to see that, okay, my family is doing well. Is there so much expectation on the part of,
There is
the parents?
pressure. There is immense pressure. You're not doing as well as your mates. Okay. I have a son who's been working in Lagos for 3 years. And as much as his family is not putting pressure on him, he sees people outside giving a different narrative. So if you don't have a foundation that is strong, society in itself has expectations that are unrealistic, and it's part of what I brought to this studio, and I'm glad you are raising it. Please, you might have borrowed to bring up that child, but you don't need to put pressure on that child to do something unrealistic for money, because there's nothing out there. There's nothing. We're pressuring these children to this crime. You see your mates getting married and you feel that you're due to get married and you don't have enough money. And the beautiful Yoruba culture that used to be about, trying to give back to the couple, which is like spraying money. Spraying money didn't start the way we are seeing it. The culture in itself was supposed to be a way of just giving back, to them by spraying them in an elegant way. You now have an obnoxious culture of people carrying dollars and actually stoning people with the dollars. That shows how depraved we are and how greedy we are over money. We have no values again except it is tied to money.
So, Chris. Look, I mean, I'm sure we're all in this and we all experience it. Yeah. Again, we keep going back to say, look, where did we miss the bus, as Dr. Gaba Abari has indicated? Is it ethnicity? Is it nepotism? Is it lack of meritocracy, lack of social justice? And as some persons have sometimes said, even though that was sometime in the past, they would say that was just the fact that might was right. To say, look, I could get this thing done, I could achieve this thing because I had the power, I had the might. You could then go to blazes. What is it that it conduced to the moral crisis that the country is facing today?
Yes, ours is a combination of so many factors. First, you have the issue of population explosion, and then dwindling economy. That led to almost a state of survival of the fittest. Secondly, you have the issue of lack of good governance, which was entrenched by the military administration. The military, by the way they do things, overlooked every other thing. It's order. They give commands, and everybody follows. Thirdly, and most importantly, is the effect of globalization. I studied globalization as a course. We studied philosophy. Globalization came as a wild storm to so many societies, including ours. As a matter of fact, Professor Maregbe, in his write-up, described globalization that for those societies and nations whose cultures are not grounded with checks and balances, he said that globalization was going to come like a wild storm. It's going to sweep up everything. The people will end up becoming inauthentic people, inauthentic nation, inauthentic human beings. They will lose their culture. We are seeing it. They either want to behave like Americans or Europeans, and indeed they are Africans and Nigerians. And so this lamentation has been going on and on. That is where you have leadership. That is the challenge of leadership. Our leadership, the question is, the political leadership we have today, we've had over the years, to what extent are they concerned about these things? Is it a matter of talking and talking? It is high time that programs, policies are articulated with a view of checkmating these excesses. Another aspect is law enforcement. Why do you have, we talk about norms, rules, the social contract is sublet part of your right to be a member of the society. In turn, the society, the government protects you. Excuse me, if you err, if your behavior and conduct goes contrary to any of this, any of the norms and rules, you are sanctioned, you are punished.
But don't you think that just what you have said now, that, you know, it's a general rule that, you know, if you do something wrong, everybody knows that it's wrong, and so, you know, you're punished or you're dealt with. Don't you think, to a large extent, ethnicity too is also a dividing factor? I say this because, just as Prof was saying earlier, we know 2 + 2 is 4. But we have seen instances where...
that is if you are using base 10. If you are using base 10.
But we've seen instances where somebody or a group of people have erred, but because probably they are from my part of the country, 2 + 2 becomes 5. And so there's the issue of ethnicity comes in. You ask a Nigerian. I say this also because every document that you have to fill in Nigeria, you have to state your state of where you're coming from, your tribe. We are all Nigerians, we know. But how do we begin to deal with this divide?
I was coming to that. That also borders on governance. In any society where there is either real or perceived injustice, where there is no fairness, you know, where there is no people are not rewarded based on their merit. These are the things I got to return. It brings also back to the issue of patriotism. A patriotic person, by the true meaning of what patriotism entails, his or her actions is considered first for the good and well-being of that society. When we say being patriotic, by being patriotic, say for instance the current administration, whether you are APC or PDP, by Hausa, Igbo or Yoruba, by being patriotic, you are not doing President Buhari a favor. You are doing favor to yourself. You will be the one that will benefit from being patriotic. The DG is patriotic, you are. Our actions and inactions and considerations are based the best interest of the greater majority of the society. Then, the issue of nepotism, corruption, and all other things is also because of lack of proper national orientation. Because where you have issue of crisis of identity, am I a Nigerian or am I Hausa or Yoruba? Professor Gunde that taught us, I think, Africa, what was the cause? We're running a running battle. He said, was an Edeko man. He said he's first and foremost a Yoruba man before becoming a Nigerian. But then we were saying that when you look at the national flag, you will not see your tribe. You will not see your gender. You will not see your political party. That the national flag reminds you that you are first and foremost a Nigerian. And the geographical entity called Nigeria, the geographical entity Nigeria, is where God has placed you. In other words, the well-being, the overall well-being of Nigeria as a political entity determines your own well-being. Nigeria as a country is like a pregnant woman. A pregnant woman who is so sick is not expected to give birth to a baby that is, that is so strong. In other words, we have to get back to the drawing board and take ownership and recover our country, our society from ourselves, because no other person, no other entity. When we talk about self-reliance, Kwame Nkrumah's self-relianceism, even these days that we run to China and all that, the Chinese, in an attempt when they broke up relations with Soviet Union, about 70 million of them died. They went back, inward-looking approach to bring about what we have today. We are told that the Japanese closed their borders for 400 years to attain self-sufficient. Even issue this era of social media and all that, social media has come to stay. This is the scientific age. But then some countries like China regulate that, because power without control is destruction. We as a country, consciously becoming aware of where we're heading to, must put in place deliberate programs and policies that will checkmate some of these things, that are flying around this area.
Well, Chris, thanks. I mean, you're getting into just one of the last statements we're making just now with regard to access to information or access to knowledge, depending on the type of knowledge. But earlier, among other points you talked about is, and this is what some scholars have also referred to, that you can modernize without westernizing. Part of the crisis that some persons will say that we face today is that we have tended to westernize and abandon our cultural, social-cultural basis. But here we are, and this is part of trying to find a solution to all of this. Assuming we have picked some of those undesirable values by westernizing, what have we done with the desirable values? Law and order, which is the foundation, which is part of what we find with discipline. If you were to commit an offense in any of the Western countries, as Nigerians will say, their police will not hear, I beg.
Sure.
So, but you commit an offense here, recklessly and willfully, and say the police, with the greatest respect to them, go to hell. Or you take the matter to court, don't worry, it will be resolved. So, how then do we say, look, law and order remains the bulwark of those Western societies from whom we have borrowed some traits to westernize, and yet, in terms of discipline, we are so lax, we don't have, our core values are virtually gone. To a large extent, people are so unpatriotic, you don't do what is right for you. You cannot be in a workplace, for instance, in the Western world, when you're supposed to clock in at a certain time, T1, and you don't clock in and you expect to be paid. So, Dr. Abari, still with you this time. How then can we bring back our old values? Poverty, some persons would argue, is not a factor, necessarily a factor. People are poor in the villages. That doesn't mean that they will go and see somebody else's tuber of yam.
Yeah.
The Nigerian state is failing. It is, these problems are both structural and systemic. They are structural, they are systemic. And they speak about the capacity of the Nigerian state. The state in itself is becoming more and more weakened, because you can see that the state, even to apply its own coercive powers where it matters, it cannot do. And this is actually part of the reasons why you see the sheer chaos, sheer lack of law and order, and therefore what you look around, when you look around, what you see is pandemonium, left, right, and center. So the state has to actually become what it is supposed to be: the protector of lives and property, and the enforcer of laws. But when laws are allowed, when laws are applied segregatively, when there is general social discontent arising from very wide disparity in the midst of plenty between those who control the handles of political power and those who do not, then definitely you find it is going to be extremely difficult to apply the laws as they are supposed to be applied. So the first instance is actually to ask the question, how do we capacitate the Nigerian state? And the first step is actually for the state to realize that first it has a fundamental objective, a fundamental basis, a fundamental reasons why it should be there to protect life and property. And look at all the things that have been outlined under the directive principles of state policy in our constitution. Look at what has been beautifully crafted out there and you see what it is that defines our reality today. That's right. So I think for as long as we are not able to marshal all this together and put them in perspective, to that same extent shall we continue to find that impunity will continue to govern our lives. Those who run it over our shoulders as political leaders actually will continue to have their day. And all these things about the democracy, free speech, freedom of expression, and what have you, and the right to choose leaders, all of this put together do not mean anything, because at the end of the day, you are only helping in perpetuating a system that alienates you, a situation that actually encourages encourages the corrupt to continue to in his act of corruption, the situation where state resources are being appropriated with wanton abandon, and the majority of the people are left actually to their own whims and to their own fate. So this is actually the problem, and we must begin as a people to realize this story has not always been like this. The Nigerian story has not always been like this. The Nigerian story, even in pre-colonial times, through the colonial times, through the immediate post-independence period, had been a positive narrative.
And then all of a sudden, this is where we are.
And all of a sudden, this is where we are.
Well, certainly not all of a sudden, though.
Well, I can say all of a sudden because the story, I mean, because it is actually a very short period from the time when we built the bus.
About a generation or so. Well, gentlemen and lady, we're taking a short break now, but do not forget this discussion is particularly very useful for the younger ones. A number of them have in their heads that, look, this is the way Nigeria had always been. That's the point that Dr. Abari was just making now. Nigeria was not always like this. Nigeria, I repeat, was not always like this. Some of us experienced things, life and things when there was order and there was predictability. And of course, you knew what was right and you did what was right. We'll take a short break now.
Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No. Now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jam questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I am sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Right, you're welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. Well, we have tweets now coming from our viewers via Twitter handle at NTAGMN. You can be a part of the conversation still. Send us a tweet. If you have comments, you have questions for our guest, you can do that via Twitter handle at NTAGMN. But first, let's take the tweets that we have from some of you. This one is from Wilson Godwin. He says the larger society is a conglomeration of smaller family units. For us to get it near right, family values must be rejigged. God bless Nigeria.
Clifford Agogoesi tweets, the home is the first value system infrastructure. Every attention must be paid to ensure its foundation is not faulty.
Chris Simeon says our value system is a master key which defines our culture. With this, our thoughts and actions are mirrored on our value system.
All right, this is from Akejo Olagbaju. It says Nigeria as a heterogeneous society is expected to have different value systems purely modeled by early upbringing and culture. As we grew, and in recent times, politics and its practice are having a negative impact, and this is a big challenge that must be addressed.
And Utulu Sunday says, what is affecting our value system is that we have forgotten who we are. We are Africans and we have our culture, but that has been defeated courtesy of the imported Western culture, which is having a negative impact on our society.
Now, Adekunle Olayemi tweets, a lot of things affect us in Nigeria. Otherwise, this country will not be in this situation. Both citizens and the government are the major reasons this country lacks value, because they always praise the rogues and hooligans.
And this one is from Kwara Zakshis. Kwara says the decadence in our culture and value system should be blamed on the influx of Western life.
Ibrahim Tudu, the centers and reservoirs of our value system, which are the family and places of worship, are no longer the same. They can no longer hold due to alien and foreign cultures and values. Materialism and greed have given way, have ensured rather corruption in discipline and criminality.
This one is from Ibrahim. Okay, I'll sing from Ibrahim. Let's take this one from Omog Bolan. It says, our marriage institution, which is today modeled around the Western culture, is the bane. In every 10 marriages, 5 to 6 collapse within 5 to 10 years, and that leaves the kids at the mercy of the society. Children brought up by single parents lack adequate value system, except in extreme cases. Another is the Western indoctrination in the name of civilization. Our kids and wards today desire to live with what he terms as Oyibo man's life, which is alien to us. They want to dress, eat, act completely like the white man. That's why somebody calls himself a transgender.
Well, Law Alpha say, get rich quick syndrome has made a mess of our values of hard work, good reputation, and patriotism. Nigerians attach undue emphasis to material things, and that's why when a government official steals money, he is hailed and rallied round.
And this one is from Abbas Abubakar Saad. He says, values are supposed to be taught at home, which of course is the responsibility of the parents because they are the first contact. To me, one of our core value system is missing today is morality. Many were well said, educated, but they lack morality. So many people are educated, but they lack morality.
Well, this is from Abdulaziz Korede. It says that Singapore began its development strides with national value internalization, which rests on national unity and common purpose. As a matter of expediency, Singapore enshrines supremacy and legitimacy of civic rights and justice, irrespective of class or race.
And this one is from Clifford Agogoesi. It says, yes, we have the pensions of our national core values inched in certain documents. How do we create and sustain awareness on these values? There are gatekeepers in the value chain. The gatekeepers must gatekeep diligently to ensure that the integrity of our value system. Those are the tweets that we have now. We ask that you continue to send in your tweets. For those of you that have sent, we say thank you so much for also being a part of the conversation. Well, Kingsley, earlier on we were actually saying that, you know, what we find in the Western and the Asian countries is that they have modernized their culture, but they did not westernize, you know, their culture like what we're getting to see now. Today, you open the pages of a newspaper, you see cases where you see parents or fathers defile their children, you see issues of kidnapping. Let's go to Kaduna, where we have Prof there. Let's go to Kaduna, where we have Prof. We're in a society where you have chieftaincy titles given to the highest bidders. You know, what is wrong? What is wrong?
With the elite, particularly the selfish and ungrateful elite that had free education, free everything, and decided to just now take up the ladder, not allowing the younger ones to come in and be mentored. And therefore, we had a situation in which if you just say ethnicity and population, it doesn't hold water, because India has a population of 1.3 and ethnicity over 2,000. But we started almost together. The same thing with Singapore that you just mentioned. China, again in the 80s, now has been able to remove over 800 million people out of poverty. And today, even at home, my children know that if Nigeria is playing, and I'm very confident all of us are comfortable with the younger team or the ladies, because we see in them the zeal of playing for the colors of Nigeria, dignity of Nigeria, unlike the senior ones who manage with whatever means they get a slot in the national team, just to come and just do shakara in the field, simply because they said they don't want to get something broken, they don't want to break their legs because they are professionals and being paid very well there, not Nigeria and so on. I think Kingsley, you earlier referred to the case of referring them to ICPC. Imagine a situation in which when we said this and that, 2015 when we came with the change and so on, those who get crushed and then smuggled, took away the thing and then left us at the gate, for instance, decided to do the wrong thing, and the system was not strong enough to check them out, because everybody was ready to work for the change, because we just suddenly saw NEPA improving. It means those who are cornering the money are not the low ones. And today, the low ones we are talking about just a minimum wage of 30,000 minimum wage, which is less than $3 a day. We are comparing ourselves to Haiti in the Caribbean, that have without fuel, without everything. And we are talking anything coming from outside, we take it as ideal. And when we play outside, we don't think along ethnicity or religion or whatever. We said Nigeria. And the same thing with values, we allowed them to happen. Imagine in the 1990s, just early 2000, when we had a Nigerian contesting for the Pope. I remember Cardinal Arinze, who were on our toes. We were praying in our bedrooms that Cardinal Arinze will clinch the ticket to be the Pope, the first black man. What we had in mind is that all this creeping thing from outside, the antichrist things that is coming from the establishment of whatever it is, they just pretend to be Judeo-Christian, but ideally most of them they do not want, and they impose certain things that were not in the holy books. Today they are out to defend things that are abnormal. For instance, they say gay right above all others, and just taking away the rights of women. They say gay right in the church. This is not something. And say a woman to be the cardinal or the pastor and becoming normal. If a woman were to be a pastor, the mother of Virgin St. Mary will have been a prophet. And so on. These are things that we expected with the coming of the Pope, coming Arinze. We expected those things to be knocked out. Today, cardinals all over in the West, declaring their own wrong, the abnormal, becoming normal, and saying openly gay and so on. That is a way of discouraging women from attending the church. Women don't like this kind of thing. So when the mother doesn't attend the church, the child will not go. And eventually the husband too will just develop lousiness at home. Just to take away people from religiosity, from just going to the church and praying. The same thing they crept through the Islam and so on. Things were just from the 80s. They never existed. All these intolerances were never existed. Just came in, they smuggled them into in the 80s, i.e. when the West, with their intelligence and so on, invaded and installed a puppet government in Iran, 1953 up to 1979, when they were driven.
All right, Prof. Dikwa, we'll see if we can come back to you. We're almost out of time, but let's see if we can get some of the thoughts of the guests here in our studio very, very briefly. I'd like Madam Gloria to actually, let's get your closing thoughts on this issue, because most of the tweets that we have now, we keep saying, let's go back to the family, let's go back to the foundation, because the leaders didn't fall from the sky. They came from family.
Well,
they came from society.
As part of that, part of the question that my colleague has just posed, is the family as a unit today in Nigeria ready to undertake the enormous task of value reorientation?
Especially with the pursuit of money by parents.
I don't think the family is on the right track in this nation right now. We have a lot of dysfunctionality in families, and it's trickling down into society. You were just mentioning the fact that we're in a society today, maybe social media is exposing it to us. I don't know how much of it was existing before, but you find a place where a man who is supposed to be the person who is the nurturer of his daughter can actually take his daughter and defile his daughter. You find all manner of things going on within the family unit. And the family unit is what determines what happens at the micro, at the society level. And so, like everybody is resounding, we must go back to the family unit. We must go back to addressing. I speak to the young person out there who is genuinely out there on your hustle. I'd like to tell you this morning that your hustle will pay you.
Yeah.
We grew up in a time when those amongst us who committed fraud and all of that, they stood out. We actually know them by name. Even though we don't call them, we know them by name. Those things, those material things they acquired, they are not of any significance to what became their future.
That's correct.
I'm 50 and I've seen a few things. So persevere. As you grow, there's something called progression. And as you progress, it gets better and better and better. And that's what we should know and impact as family members. Don't sit back and say, you came again with a bike. Please hide. You go home and your parents see you coming on a bike and somebody else came in a BMW or came in a Benz, and it's like they're tearing Benz. We hear of all kinds of obnoxious things that young men are subjecting themselves to just to make fast money. At the end of the day, you lose your dignity, you lose your life, you lose your soul at the religious level, and you're just empty. And you find that they cannot even, that's why communal life has also collapsed, because of the kind of money that is in the system. It's like it's a pull to lure more people into doing what is wrong. And so the community life that we had, or shared values where you could help a neighbor, is also eroded. But you know what? Persevere and go the right path. It never ever fails.
Chris, is the family ready, and are other institutions also ready to undertake this task?
Yeah, well, the family as the first social institution to impact those values is there and must have to rejig itself. Though we live in a society where there's a lot of lack. So, to the extent that the priority of fathers and mothers is how to put food on the table. The church, the mosque, as social institutions, should also come alive to their religious duties and responsibilities in teaching the young ones. Generally, Nigeria's political elite, the political leadership of this country, must, as a matter of urgency, come alive to face the challenges of leadership. That's why they are first among equals. A sovereignty like ours, government is not supposed to fail, because government have the wherewithal to be able to bring things the way it wants it to be. Nigeria as a country, the Nigerian police, we must get the police right. Retrain and retrain, pay them well, indoctrinate them, just like the soldiers, to defend the
law and order.
Law and order.
All right, Dr. Abari, closing thoughts.
I think the family is ready, but the family is, but the nuclear family in particular must have to be up and doing. You know, in my opening remarks, I made reference to the nature of the environment. And this environment that is actually now being governed and driven by the internet culture is one that must not be allowed to go unregulated. Parents must have to take more than a person interest in what their children do with the smartphone.
Important.
They are always, you see them always very active on Twitter, on Instagram, and WhatsApp, on Go, and IMO, and what. Receiving all manner of messages, you know, all manner of messages, unregulated, and all this kind of thing that come into this smartphone tend to also, one way or the other, affect their thinking. Parents must also take more than a passing interest with what their children do with the computer. They should take a look at what sites their children visit. Of course, a lot of the elite families actually are the ones you find that are guilty of this. So a lot of the moral decadence we see is found around the so-called children of the world to do, simply because such parents feel that what they do, the expression of what is more than an ordinary love for the child, you know, has no eventual consequences. But such kind of things do have consequences.
All right, Dr. Garba Abari, Director General, National Orientation Agency, would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. We also would like to thank Gloria Okolubo, former commissioner in Delta State, now a development specialist for a non-profit entity. Thank you for being with us on the program this morning. Chris Agiri, Flag Foundation of Nigeria, thanks a lot for being our midst this morning.
Thank you very
From
much.
Kaduna, we're joined by Professor Khalifa Dikwa. Professor Dikwa, always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thanks a lot for your contribution. All right, let's go over now to our sports desk.
Imama Mapakaba will lead the home-based Super Eagles out to Lome on Friday for the first leg of a 2020 African Nations Championship CHAN qualifying fixture against Togo on Sunday. The home-based Eagles have been preparing for the game in Abuja under the tutelage of Amapakabo. The bulk of the under-23 team, the Olympic Eagles, that edged out Sudan 5-1 on aggregate in the Africa Under-23 Cup of Nations qualifiers, are part of the squad. Goalkeeper Adamu Abubakar, defender Lisanda, John Lazarus and Ebube Duru, as well as midfielders Fatai Badamosi, Ndifreke Efyong, and Sunusi Ibrahim are expected to make the final squad to Lome. The reverse fixture will take place in Nigeria a fortnight later. The overall winner of the game will qualify for the CHAN 2020 tournament to be hosted by Cameroon. The home-based Super Eagles made it to the final of last edition of CHAN, losing 4-0 to host nation Morocco. In Europe, Dries Mertens' penalty and the late Fernando Llorente goal condemned holders Liverpool to defeat in their Group E Champions League opener against Napoli. Belgian forward Martens scored from the penalty spot after Liverpool defender Andy Robertson was judged to have fouled Jose Callian. Belgian forward Martens scored from the penalty spot after Liverpool defender Andy Robertson was judged to have fouled Jose Callian. Former Tottenham forward Llorente then capitalized on a mistake from Virgil van Dijk in stoppage time to roll the ball past Liverpool keeper Adrian. And in other results, it was FC Red Bull Salzburg 6 and KRC Genk 2. Inter Milan 1, Slavia Prague 1. Borussia Dortmund played out a barren draw with Barcelona. Lyon 1, Zenit St. Petersburg 1. Benfica lost at home to RB Leipzig. Chelsea lost 0-1 to Valencia, while Ajax defeated Lille by 3-0.
Nigeria's value system, what went wrong, has been our focus on Good Morning Nigeria today. We thank you for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 7. I'm Rhoda Anonam.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Rhoda in thanking you for tuning in. Do enjoy the rest of your day.